minutes, I was trying to sketch out a new idea, which I kind of want to riff through with you right now, because I think I got it wrong before. I think there's a better answer. Slide, psychotic man. Next one. All right, so this is the whiteboard. Okay, I think there is a fundamental problem, and I say this as someone who was last in education a long time ago and was a very bad student, so I really may have missed the memo on what's everything's changed. But my understanding of what the legal education system does is it teaches lawyers how to answer facts in order to give answers, right? And the whole model, because you're in the education business, is about lawyers, and we've just touched on the question, right, about is this actually the right way to look at it from a systems thinking perspective, because everything puts the lawyer in the center. And I get that you guys get paid to train lawyers, and so we perpetuate it, but I also, when I see these kind of conferences being put on, I kind of get the feeling you'd rather be building systems than lawyers, but you have to kind of teach lawyers. So I'm just going to raise some questions here about how you teach them, because maybe we should be doing less focus on training lawyers and more focus on training system builders. Anyway, I think this is the paradigm that we operate on. If you go to the next slide, right, LLMs turn up in the conversation because it's LLMs replace the lawyer, and now we're just talking about, you know, replacing it. But the whole pattern overall is we are in the artifact creating business. And if we go to the next slide, that is what knowledge management looks like, especially in large American law firms. We don't have a clue about knowledge management, right? I said this having worked, right? Because what knowledge management is in law firms is collection of artifacts. Right, and so the document management system becomes conflated with knowledge management. If we go to the next slide, so then the knowledge management resources, right, which are being carefully tagged, and the whole, you know, it's kind of obvious, right? We think that the library industry went into AI industry, knowledge management, and everything else, and we're just basically categorizing and tagging stuff, which gets fed through to lawyers so they can do it. So they take more facts and they create more artifacts and they throw that back in the pile. Right, and here we are in the artifact business. Slide. A few weeks ago, I was in Florida, and I think I was the first lawyer talking at the Shingo conference. Now, obviously, no one knows what Shingo is because it's a whole different world out there. But Shingo is codified lean, if you know what I mean by lean, and they codified it, the extreme sport version, I call it, and the Nobel Prize for engineering is the term they coined for the Shingo Prize. And I think I was the first lawyer talking there ever. And certainly the first lawyer Shingo alumni ever, because that's a serious world, and we operate over here in a non-serious world, where we just go and do stuff, and everyone kind of ignores us in the industries. In fact, all companies that win Shingo prizes don't ever bother even dealing with their legal department because it's too hard, because we don't train them just to churn artifacts. But anyway, in the Shingo world, which is serious about process and so on, you start to get an idea that you could actually think in advance rather than just doing, and not everything's real-time a human, but you actually have processes, and you decide when you break out of that process and so on. And I think we can do that more in law as well. So go to the next one. I haven't talked about this before. This is called voting. I'll show you what it is because it's a massive trade secret, but I can talk about it in this space because it's safe, because it's pandemic. And it's kind of paying attention amongst my competitors. So this is how we reason about contracting knowledge at Radian Law. We're specialists in contracts at scale, so we care a lot about doing this. And what we have is a way of teaching our lawyers and giving them just-in-time knowledge about stuff that matters in their contracts, right? So we in background, we're teaching them about products, players, and economic exchange, i.e. what are the kind of deals they're going to be doing on this account. We have two types of backgrounds, contract type and underpinning law. By the way, you guys only play in this space here, underpinning law and legal knowledge, right? The vast majority of work we do in contracting has absolutely zero to do with that. That is the smallest amount of the knowledge that we have in our firm. The big stuff is over here on contract type, clause type. But anyway, is that 5 minutes or sure? Okay. All right. Cool. So our argument is that a contract represents a series of positions on issues. An issue is a class of objectives between parties, which because of their different objectives, they take different positions on issues, and that these issues can be grouped as themes. So the theme is confidential information, the issue is how long do you have to keep it confidential, and the positions are 1 year, 5 years, forever, right? Now we have a structure where we are outside the flat land of the artifact We can build databases. We built a database with hundreds and hundreds of generic issues that connect the playbooks across all our clients. We can start sucking in information and providing them because we have moved out of flatland. Next slide, please. And it gets bigger, right? It's a multiverse out there. Not only is it because not only are all these different deal types or different areas of law different, but actually what's interesting is we can connect the dots between them within the general thing of contracts. Metaverses collide, right? So we're giving them the same information about this clause in the context of an NDA to this clause in the context of a licensing agreement and so on and so forth. Because it turns out these issues are universal. It also starts to give you a pathway to build in knowledge, transferable work, architecture of transactions, I think it's called. An extraordinary book applying microeconomic theory to stuff that turns up in contracts, right? We're starting to bring different disciplines in. Next slide. So what is document automation? I should cover that. Document automation is you answer some questions, it produces a tailored contract for another document. Next slide, please. This is our favorite product. It's called DocAssemble. It's open source. Someone's coming in, they're answering some questions, right? You start to give them answers at the other end. We were alluding it to earlier. It was the first generation of AI expert systems, right? Starting to build expert systems. So my point, I'm going to make a point, it's a riff, and it's a half-formed riff, but my point is we've got to get out of the business of building everything around lawyers. We need to build systems to solutions, and in order to build those system solutions, constantly trying to replace lawyers with cheaper lawyers, otherwise known as LLMs, it's not going to work because they are not reasoning. But we can capture reasoning in advance, right? And this is a worthy thing for smart people to be doing. And if we want to capture in advance, there are ways about it, but we need to expand the minds of our wonderful students beyond living in the flatland of facts. You do something and write an essay, facts. You do something, a contract comes out, facts. You do something, advice comes out, right? And into a world where we are reasoning about the connections between document automation is the solution. Next slide, please. Because it is how we connect artifacts to data structures. And you gotta be teaching them this stuff. And that was my 10 minutes after